What's up, everyone? Welcome back. This is week 4 of season 2 of Quake Pro League, and my name is Ketchup, and I'm joined by Flea as always. And our next matchup, a battle of the fan favorites, who I think every time they play have good matches. toxjq and cypher going head to head.
Yep, toxjq versus cypher. We've got the Terminator versus the Rockets from Belarus, two very well-known players. Let's kick it off first with toxjq, the Swedish Terminator, a man who plays emotionlessly, known for his extremely potent and powerful aim, in particular with the lightning gun and the tracking weapons. So far, unfortunately though, a bit inconsistent. We mentioned it earlier already. toxjq kind of has this tendency of being a bit too aggressive on the refrag and giving up a lot of frags. But when things work and he just lands the shot, my goodness, is this man a force of nature?
It's the nature of, look, we say this every single time we talk about tox, because it's always apparent, isn't it, that it depends on what kind of tox you get on the day, because when he's on, it's like, this is broken. Someone needs to just this guy shouldn't even be allowed to play. It's so ridiculous.
Nerf him.
But then sometimes when he's not on, it's just a complete disaster, and it is a one end of the seesaw or the other. Now cypher has had a lot more, I think, recent success over the stages, you know, where he had the absolute miracle run of the stage 3 finals, so close to getting the victory overall. However, stage 4, the World Championships, heartbreaking. Absolutely. I think a lot of cypher fans out there, and cypher himself, I mean, that was a majorly underperformed compared to what we knew he could achieve. And no doubt he was devastated about that, because he knows how well he can play as well. But he hasn't recently had like the same climb that he did in the later stages of last season, right? So it's two players where, above all else, I'm just very curious to see how they're currently shaping up, you know?
I mean, and if we look back at these players' history, it was actually that stage 4 finals that you just mentioned where toxjq knocked cypher out of the tournament in the lower bracket. So not all that long ago that these two went head to head, and then it was toxjq who reigned supreme. Cypher, as you mentioned, probably disappointed in his performance, and so far in this stage hasn't been performing that well either, because he lost to base not too long ago in stage 1 of season 2, and the same goes for toxjq, who lost both of his games as well. So neither player really coming into their own just yet, but I think that hopefully we're going to see someone shine today.
Now let's take a look at the picks and bans, because especially in these recent weeks, I'm always curious to see if anyone's going to go for some of the new blood. But as we can see, Deep Embrace and Tower of Koth were both removed. Blood Covenant first with Slash versus Anarchy. Awoken, very conventional again. Galena being taken away though. Always good taking that away from Tox. Tox's Galena can be highly annoying in competitive, it seems. Doomslayer and Strog, and then Ruins of Sarnath. We do actually see Tox rocking the Scale Bearer for the final map, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, indeed. We've seen Tox play the big, bulky scale quite a few times in the past, but it's definitely not a champion that I think he's typically associated with. The Anarchy that we're going to see first much more fits his playstyle. He loves those fast-moving champions, and I think that he would have an eye on that Slash himself if it wasn't for cypher, who picked her first. So we're going to see a very explosive and fast Blood Covenant, 2 light and extremely mobile champions. Then map 2, Awoken. toxjq going for the Doomslayer, the double jump, extremely powerful around that center area of the map. cypher again sticking with the crouch sliders 2 games in a row, but this time with the added benefits of the peaker. And then the final map will be Ruins of Sarnath, as you mentioned. Scalebearer works extremely well on this map. And then we've got Ison taking him on cypher's side. So once again, none of the new maps being chosen yet. We got to enjoy Deep Embrace earlier today. We got to see Koth last week. Hopefully we'll see some more of it. But clearly, not that many of the players are that eager to pick these maps.
Not yet. And I mean, it's new map syndrome, isn't it? Where players, just because it's in the rotation doesn't mean a player will actually feel comfortable enough to play it yet. You know, if you don't feel like you're fully ready, and, you know, there's something that, especially in season 2 now, every map counts. Every single map counts because of the pricing. You know, $150 for first, 50 for getting for a loss, basically.
Yep.
So, you know, if there's any amount of wins you don't want to give away because you just don't know a map, a lot of players aren't going to bother taking that risk. And it's almost funny to me that, you know, we say now that Scalebearer is not a champion that you really associate with Tox, because it definitely used to be. When the game first started being played competitively, you know, the World Championship days, 2017, not only the World Championship, but the DreamHack qualifiers after that. Tox was kind of, especially in Europe, the only player that was actually trying Scale Bearer in tournament. That was when Scale Bearer was definitely, I think, at his competitively worst in Duel, at the very least. You would see him in Sacrifice and stuff from time to time, but it's just a champion that Tox used to kind of be the only person pioneering back when he, wasn't that great. And now things are a bit different. It's not the same, is it? Anyway, we're loading into our first map now. Blood Covenant, cypher, and Tox, the BFF champions.
Starting things off on Cypher's point of view, running of course the Slash, one of the quickest champions in the entire game. That crouch sliding just gives you so much of that instant momentum. Yes, Anarchy has got the air control, but he doesn't have that same level of explosive start that Cypher have with the Slash. Good read from toxjq. Probably heard his opponent over at the Rockets and Bridge and was expecting Cypher to jump across, landing a nice little cheeky rocket to start things off with. Good plays from toxjq. Cypher barely escaping that room. Heavy will be going his way. toxjq will be picking up the Mega to counter it. But so far it's all been toxjq to deal the damage.
Ooh. Looking to be a little bit more careful. Tox ready. Going straight through that teleport, the classic technique, rail into telly. So you don't get as punished quite heavily.
Now Heavy. Cypher with the better positioning on the item. Rocket jumps out of it. Oh, he doesn't pick out a bubble. I don't think that was intended. Loving the play there, though. This is so aggressive. So typically Cypher. One of the best ways of describing him, I've always felt like, is call him unorthodox. And that is what that move was. Just building the speed, not going for the item, but dropping straight down, cutting your opponent off. Not a move that a lot of players would make, and even fewer would expect.
As we can see, Cypher here, it's all about keeping control when you can. The battle of these light champions, that armor, I mean, it's a absolutely valuable resource, especially factoring in that Tox, having that injection, that extra ability to just get some health on demand. If he doesn't have any armor to work with, that injection doesn't even come close to having the same level of use. And now Cypher hitting these rails, needs to continue it though. Doesn't quite hit the first shot. Oh, Tox gets hit by the next, which now means there's no need to rail any longer. Tox is so weak. And he's forced to retreat right as Cypher continues to cycle these items around. Looking to control the light armor just in case Tox had it on his mind. But it looks like for now, we've temporarily disengaged. And Tox, at the very least, has been able to get himself back up to a normal stack.
Indeed, toxjq recovering quite nicely, but again getting peppered by those rails once more. Using the injection a bit more proactively this time. Yeah, Cypher catches him off guard. Can he push through the choke point? toxjq, the infamous toxjq click once more. I do think that would have been a hit if he had the ammo to actually fire off the shot. This will once again allow Cypher to string together another rotation of the items. Player from Belarus, the Na'Vi player. Hungry for damage, but out of rails. Gotta keep that in mind.
Oh! That one close range encounter definitely could have led to a lot more damage. It looks like a lot of those rockets just didn't hit their mark at all. And Cypher, a constant decision to kind of drop down and always look for the armors, just in case Tox is doing it. And thankfully, Tox hasn't really taken the bait very much, but that is an easy pickup. The first frag definitely goes to Cypher here. Right as the Mega's going to spawn, and now he has a sizable lead. Tox with no armor. This will be a common problem, the Battle of the Lights. If one player controls all the armor, the other player is not going to be close to comfortable. It's Tox. Terrible position to be in now. And another opportunity for Cypher to take the armor away. Jumps down towards the light, the forbidden fruit. But Cypher has a bigger armor to take. That's much more rewarding.
As you mentioned yourself, playing against the light champion means that there's going to be far fewer small armors for you to pick up. Because if you're playing a large champion, you can go up to 200 points of armor. So you can take a rail or two, you can take a fair bit of damage before you're low enough that you can pick up a small armor. But if you're playing a light champion, like say Slash or Nyx, and you take one bad shot, even with the heavy, you're immediately back at a level where you can pick up more armor, so you can continuously deny everything to your opponent. And that is very clearly what Cypher is banking on when he lands a beautiful vertical rail right at the Na'Vi player. Things are kicking into a higher gear.
One of the major issues that Tox has been having is that he's rarely had all the weapons as well. He spawns and he kind of makes the best with what he's got, but Cypher, so good at catching what spawn he's got and just shuts any weapon down that he doesn't want him to have. Tox does have a rail at least, but that rail, ooh, gets 2 in a row. He's weak himself. With no armor, as I've said though, that injection's not going to be as vital if you just don't have any armor to work with. Tox does have the heavy at the very least. He has got time to make the comeback too, but I'm a little bit concerned over this just pure dominance that Cypher's had over him.
This is indeed going to be very tricky for the Swedish Terminator. He finally manages to equalize the stacks a bit more. And also seems to have, he makes a run for it now, the better position onto the heavy, but he won't, he's just gonna go aggressive. Needs to do a bit more damage, ends up taking a rail instead, and this is Cypher coming out on top. Both players railable. I love how no one went for the Mega, realizing immediately how dangerous it is when you're that low on stack. Both players just retreating to their own camps. toxjq gets heavy, Cypher gets Mega, and it's actually the Na'Vi player who gets the better stack, because he had the small armors to work with, whereas toxjq, of course, was capped out after picking up the heavy.
And he had sufficient information as well, but he returns fire with a rail of his own, just to make Tox sweat a little bit. And even more of the armor going to Cypher here. Taking a look at the items actually being taken, the control has been almost exclusively Cypher. I just want to point out, Cypher's got 11 megas and 8 heavies. Tox has 4 heavies and 1 mega. There's not as much of an emphasis to take the mega as Anarchy, because you can use the injection, but the control, without question, has gone to Cypher this map.
Loving the new heavy machine gun skin Cypher is using. Got a lot of sweet new cosmetics in the game. That's just one of many. Ooh, Cypher. Probably thought he had successfully baited Tox. He didn't. Yep, toxjq just holding his ground. Cypher expecting toxjq to just have left, but he was still there. Luckily for him, he gets the refrag instantly, and now toxjq looking for the same kind of move. Didn't have the weapons at the ready just yet, and so Cypher extending his lead even further.
As we get closer and closer to the end of the map, it's kind of looking like Cypher's going to take this one quite dominantly. Tox, wouldn't doubt to say Tox is playing bad here, but Cypher just seems to be all over him. The accuracy's been through the roof, a lot of impressive rails, actually. Both players dead even on their rail accuracy, 44% apiece.
In the end, Cypher, though, with the lead, a significant lead, still piling on the railgun shots. We'll have to give up heavy, but toxjq, I think, is still railable. One more shot should still do it. Can't quite manage it, but he doesn't need to either. And I fully support Cypher's decision to just back away right there. He knew that just staying around, the only thing he can gain from that is a loss. He's got such a commanding lead already. He should not be putting himself in any of these dangerous positions anyways. So once you take enough damage, knowing that you're railable, just get out. Don't even go for the peak. Yeah, you're gonna get one more frag if you land the shot, but that doesn't matter. You've got plenty of frags to work with. You just need to not die. Cypher, of course, realizing that immediately and backing away from the fight.
And wonderful use of the crouch slide, the plasma trail, the instant burst of speed that even Anarchy is not going to be able to chase down. Knowing that Tox's has no choice but to push. Looking for a bonus frag, I think, just for good measure here, but this by all means should really be a done deal. That Tox consistently behind. Cypher is hitting the damage, and even if Cypher is trying to play more defensive, he's still taking away the items when possible. Just keep Tox as far away as possible and make it almost completely unlikely that he's going to get even a single frag going into the end of this map.
Yeah, with 1 minute left to go, I don't really think it is possible for toxjq to get himself a map win. Looks like Cypher, oh, that is a juicy amount of damage from the plasma trail. Very rarely you actually see it being used to do damage at this high competitive level. Usually players will just use that ability to get away soon or to maybe deny an item from a distance, making sure that their opponent can't just push in, but actual damage like that is pretty rare. With one more frag on the board, Cypher will have sealed the deal completely. And Toxic already has to start thinking about map 2.
No choice, but really, if we're talking about how this map went for Cypher, just a nice little common Cypher, I mean, a bit of a common Cypher map really, isn't it? Where he's aggressive when necessary. Those kind of interesting play. And what was there was the play in the early stage of the map where he drops down and just applies pressure.
Yeah.
Little things like that just make Cypher such a unique specimen. But I think other than that, it seemed like his aim was a bit more impressive than Tox as well, actually. A lot of those rail situations, especially the rails that actually landed the kill shot, he very rarely missed those. There was that one moment near the end of the map where he missed a whole bunch of rails and then disengaged. But at that point, who cares? He's already got such a substantial lead that Tox didn't really look all that much like Tox in that map. And Cypher definitely looked a bit like Cypher, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely, and this is the kind of Cypher that we all love to see, and I do think that we're going to see more of him. Very promising start from the player from Belarus. Toxic, though, if there is a good thing to be said, it is that he did hold his own pretty well. He matched the damage in a lot of situations, but Cypher ended up one-upping him when it mattered the most. But still, I do think that Toxic just didn't make the mistake that we've seen him make quite often, which is where he just runs in aggressively over and over, trying to force a frag or a situation when it isn't the right time. So, good thing for him, that is at least somewhat promising moving into Awoken, that he's got that under control, and hopefully he can keep playing that calculated playstyle.
That's what it comes down to, though, because, I mean, looking at those endgame stats and the fact that Cypher had just shy of almost every single major item. There's this element of Tox maybe feeling like he doesn't need to present himself on some of the items because he has the injection and he has the insta burst. I mean, look at that, 2 megas and 6 heavies versus, well, the far greater amount of Cypher right there. Just kind of meant that, on top of having these items, Cypher tended to, on top of keeping his stack really high, be in those positions to land the damage on Tox, always be in a rail angle, always be in a position to, hit him when he's trying to go for one of the items. It was just difficult. Tox was almost always out of position, because he wasn't on the items to put himself in position.
Yep, absolutely. Cypher won that one badly when it came down to the positional place. And it's going to be quite curious to see how that translates into the next map, which will, of course, be Awoken. Here we get to see some more stats. Cypher 40% rail, not too shabby at all against a quick, slippery champion like Anarchy that Tox was playing. And as we're loading up our next map, it will be Toxic running the Doomslayer going up against Cypher playing the Strog. So again, Cypher running a crouch slider, Toxic going for the vertical mobility with the Doomslayer. What are your thoughts about this one, Ketchup?
I don't really expect anything too out of the ordinary, but you do expect Cypher, he has that speed to majorly chase down if he needs to. Tox is always more to, the Doomslayer, it's one of the best champions that you can pick on this map. The double jump is so good for just navigating point A, point B. I am curious to see mostly what Tox does around the items, to be honest with you, because he just wasn't there on the last map. On Blood Covenant, every time there was a major item spawning where you normally expect a fight or something, he just never really took initiative in that respect. So as we go into Awoken, I just want to see what he does when the items spawn. I think I'll be paying a lot of attention to him as we start things off.
Right. I am definitely inclined to agree. We're loading into it. Awoken, a beautiful map, a fan favorite, one that a lot of the pro players enjoy themselves. As we are starting it off on the winner of map 1, this will be Cypher. That quick crouch sliding working for him. He starts off on the heavy side of things. And he's looking for these long distance angles. He knows that his opponent hasn't gotten the railgun yet, and he wants to abuse that. Take advantage of it as much as he possibly can. LG will be going his way.
Yeah, that's the next objective, where if you are going against a Doomslayer, especially on Awoken, you've got to make sure you've got an LG. Catching him on those bad double jumps, or even in those fights you would otherwise want to use a rocket launcher, it's so important, and he's taking tons of damage! Tox should be able to really lay the pressure on here. Uses it as an opportunity to take the Mega, which is great. He's able to get a little bit of dominance here on these items. The Pika. Oh, misses the Kamikaze.
Yeah. little bit of a spiral right there. Doesn't connect with any of it. Toxic kind of fumbling the weapon choice, and it will be Cypher actually claiming his own life right there. Cypher on -1. How often do you see that? Not a common sight at all. Toxic is going to get himself on the board as well. This is looking like a good start for the sweep.
Ooh. Raining down a little bit of rocket damage from above. Oh, the Berserk popped. Oh, and he can't. The second that rail didn't hit its mark and he was kind of stuck out in no man's land. That is one of the times Berserk is almost used as desperation in between, but the eternal struggle of not being point blank. You have to close in that space, which makes getting shots on you almost completely easily guaranteed for max damage. But this LG, man, Tox's LG has been ridiculous so far. We've only been like less than 2 minutes, yet Tox has already done a substantial amount of LG damage.
Yeah, Toxic is already sitting at 1,000 damage dealt in total, whereas Cypher is in the 600 range. At least for the time being. Nice little sneaky rail. There's a decent delay between the items. Cypher bringing it back with the railgun, but those rockets might make him think twice about just pushing in right away.
That was a scary rail to miss.
Yeah,
Tox was
absolutely.
railable right up until that little bit of stack he picked up. He was railable.
Clever play from Cypher. Instead of just setting up for the Mega, looking for an angle, still knowing exactly where Toxic was going for. Good coming. Oh my goodness. Toxic.
I've seen enough ring outs today,
Yeah.
Tox. Let alone
Almost.
self-inflicted ones. Oh, Cypher gets a frag. He's weak. We'll see what he's going to be able to pick up, but this SSG, I think, really should allow for a free refrag, and it will. And for good measure, actually, Cypher dropping the railgun, which means that Tox doesn't have to go out of his way to get one. So he can put some pressure on if he wants to. No, he might have a lot of utility for it, though. He's got a rail and an SSG, but no rocket, no LG.
God, Toxic staying in the map there. That gives your heart a bit of a kicker right there. Good rails, though. Oh,
Wow,
my
3 in a row.
goodness.
One extra hit of LG, and Tox would have died. It looks like he took him for the refrag. He only has a rail. Does Tox go back to the... Oh, no, doesn't even need to. Oh, no, he misses the shot. These rails are not hitting their mark. Cypher's going to be kicking himself. He'll be kicking himself, Flea, off those missed shots. Tox kind of had no right getting that.
That was just a wrong weapon choice as well. Of course, it's easy for us to say because we can see the exact stack, but Cypher... Toxic was on 6 points of health. 2 machine gun bullets with the armor that he had would have been all it took to finish off his opponent.
It must have been that Cypher wasn't 100% certain how weak he was, because I refuse to believe if Cypher knew Tox only had 6 HP that he wasn't going to just swap to a better weapon.
Absolutely.
You know? Cypher absolutely would have done that, but Tox, I mean both players in fact, incredibly weak. Cypher in a little bit better shape thanks to a Mega, but another rail that's just not hitting its mark. Cypher favoring the rail a lot, but his accuracy has left a lot to be desired. 26% accuracy, 4 of the 15 shots have hit. Not good maths right now for Cypher.
Indeed, that definitely doesn't favor him, although he does have the stack advantage this time around. This could be the start for a pretty decent rotation for Cypher. Plenty of time between the items, got them both locked down. Toxic probably doesn't have exact timing on either of them. Cypher, aggressive push, rockets are beautiful. This could be the start of something beautiful. Catches Toxic immediately, super shotgun coming out strong, but not strong enough. Of course, with a bit of a revamp to the spawn system, we're going to see these more aggressive re-engagements happen a bit more often. Cypher, will he be forced to give up Mega? Toxic doesn't have LG yet, I don't think, so Cypher knows this. Knows that he can safely jump across, no risk of being barraged by that shaft. And that gets him the item, a ton of stack, and also positional advantage.
Oh, looking to spring the trap. Rail being missed should be a free shot here for Cypher. Tox. A lot of damage himself, but the LG from Cypher is impressive. Soaks up another one. Equalizes, brings us to a 5-5. We'll see if this is going to be the 1-1 situation where the Cypher's going to get that 2-0 to start things off. Lovely little rail shot there. Tox using the double jump to reposition himself, but a fair amount of tri-bolt damage. Has other plans for that push. As he tries to push in again, Tox of unreturned damage that Cypher is able to distribute here. That's going to make things pretty tricky at the moment. A lot of the resources are already being picked up on the map, so we have 5 seconds until heavy. Neither player looking to take that one yet. And now Cypher, the speed load means he'll be there first.
Both of these champions clearly have got a different type of speed working in their favor. Toxic has got the vertical mobility, can so easily maneuver around the center of the map, but hang on, 1, 2, 3 rails in a row. Cypher clinging on for dear life. Can the peeker save him? Now it won't. Toxic actually is going to go back in, looking for another angle. Cypher not ready for this, and that'll be the Terminator. One frag in the lead once more.
Now, he's getting some really nice rocket damage, but he has to be a little bit careful, though, because the rocket is all he has. And even then, he only has 3 of them, so ammo is the objective here. Speaking of which, only 1 rocket left. Ah, Tox, he just has no ammo. He has to put a lot of faith in this rail, Flea. I'm nervous.
No rockets, no LG. Hang on, rail's working nicely.
Oh, come on. Only Tox could have only a railgun and still make it work to that caliber.
My goodness.
Most players would go, man, gee, I need a new weapon. And Tox just goes, what do you mean? The railgun's fine. Oh, speaking of which, Cypher turns it with his own. Perfect time, because he gets the heavy too. Uh-oh. Tox needs to be very careful about this. The Berserk! You madman! You madman! Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. That was a really good Berserk, actually. I respect the hell out of that one.
Don't see it nearly enough, but Toxic, he knew he had the position. He knew that Cypher was basically forced to go through, pick up the Mega that way. And then when that railgun shot missed, Toxic realized that, hang on, I don't have any weapons, but I've got these fists. And that was all he needed to extend his lead even further. Ketchup, we really do have a brawl on our hands. A Cypher of the spawn, quick rail. We'll put him back in a fighting position, but still trailing by 2 frags.
Mega's in play, the rocket. The idea for Tox there, I think, definitely was to try and knock Cypher away so he could pick up the Mega himself, but the speed, Cypher just too quick to reach that point.
And that LG right there. Beautiful tracking. While getting pushed back in midair, Cypher still managing to hit that much. I think one of the big things that's working in Toxic's favor right now is the railgun accuracy. He's landing 62% of all his rails, whereas Cypher has exactly half of that, 31%. That's helping him out tremendously because rail is definitely the weapon that he's been favoring for most of this game. Now Toxic on the back foot, doesn't have a lot of stack to work with, is still railable. Cypher, can he find the angle? He can't just yet. He can pick up heavy, but he doesn't have that much time catch up.
5 seconds might be a little bit longer than you'd like, as we're now 1 minute 15 away from things coming to a close here on Awoken. Cypher, a significant stack advantage. Stack advantage won't finish the job. If you're 2 frags behind, looks like he should be able to score at least 1 more, but the defensive rail from Tox. That alone is frustrating because now Cypher needs to get a little bit of armor, needs to take this time to restack, just to not only make sure he can win this fight right here, but that he's healthy enough that he can pressure on spawn. Because if he's weak and a refrag happens, the map is done.
Absolutely. Now Cypher, heavy is up, chooses not to even go for it straight away. We'll pick it up now though, because he knows that if he leaves that up too long and Toxic sneaks around him, that probably will be the end of it. So he has to apply pressure while also taking some of these items. Now he has to push through a choke point. He knows it. Toxic knows it. Toxic will leave once the peeker comes out. And now Cypher, he has to make this frag happen within 10 seconds or so. This needs to be it. He can't back down now. Has to cut Toxic off. LG will work just fine. 15 seconds left to go.
Can he find it?
Oh, that's a long time to wait.
Yeah, it is. He's got 10 seconds now to find Tox, finish the job. I don't know if it's possible. I think waiting for the heavy just allowed too much time to go down, as Tox is going to make things 1-1 right here. And now we're going into our final map, as we always were going to, but now there's a lot more riding on it. And what an interesting matchup it will be, the Ison versus the Scale Bearer, to find out who's going to win. It's not a matchup that you see every day, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. Should be a very interesting one, especially because the Ison turret can block that bull rush dead in its tracks. But man, what a map did we just see. Super high octane, very action and energetic for an Awoken, a constant brawl from start to finish. Lots of damage being exchanged. And then it'll be Toxic pulling through in the end. And I do agree with you, Cypher waiting for that heavy. I do think it cost him a bit too much time in that situation, burning those precious 4 seconds that he was waiting for the item to spawn. while Toxic just picked up that small armor and set up over on the LG side of the map, knowing that he had the teleporter to play with, knowing that he can get away very easily. Yes, Cypher landed a rail, but he needed so much more and he just didn't have the time for it.
So, as we go into our next map, the Ison and the Scale Bearer. I mean, this is an open, one of the larger maps. You know, the open space and the demand for hitting those rails is significantly high. Tox being a larger target. And every time you pick one of those larger champs, you go in with the understanding of, okay, they're probably going to hit these shots on me, so I need to make sure that my accuracy is up to par. Yeah. And Tox, I mean, like you said there, 66% rail by the end, and he fired a significant amount of them. It was all the more impressive the rate of rails that Tox fired to hit that much. He kind of needs to keep up that consistency going into Ruins of Sarnath, otherwise he's going to be in big trouble. You know, he's a large target, the Ison, the 2v1 factor, and the block potential as well of the turret, being able to stop that bull rush from being crazy beneficial. I'm very curious, honestly, to see how this one goes, and it looks like we should be loading in very soon.
I also think it's interesting to see how Toxic just changed his playstyle. He hit 26% LG, which is extremely low for what we know Toxic can do. But then when he realizes that that weapon just isn't working out for him in that fight for whatever possible reason, he just completely plays around it and he switches entirely to a long-distance rail game, trying to get up close with the rockets, which work extremely well in your Doomslayer, and you can double jump above your opponent to aim down and do maximum splash damage. So Toxic, very quick to adapt right there, whereas Cypher, I think, is gonna have to step it up a bit, especially when it comes to the railgun. You can't land 26% rail against a Scale Bearer on this map. You need to be constantly culling and cutting that stack down, or you're going to be in such major trouble.
But it's how many player interviews do we hear in Quake across the years where players say stuff pretty much along the lines of, yeah, in the middle of the map I realized that my LG wasn't all that, so I kind of swapped to this because I was hitting good rails or I was hitting good rockets or whatever it might be. It's actually more common than I think we give it credit, that players on the fly can figure out whether a weapon of theirs just isn't working, but they know they're hitting good with another one, so they kind of on the fly just restructure their game plan to work around the weapons that are doing well for them. It's something that a lot of people don't really talk about, but it happens. You know, it happens on a map-to-map basis, and if you're not feeling it, you are your own biggest critic. You know when something doesn't feel right. So if you have the confidence and the versatility to shift it up, it's a really powerful tool to have in the bank, I think.
Absolutely, and it's something that you need to be able to play at this high level. You can't compete in the Quake Pro League against the best in the world without being able to adapt on the fly and pick up on what is working and what's not in order to change things up and counter your opponent in new ways. And on that note, though, we are loading into the very final map of the series.
Indeed.
For those of you who are just tuning in, it is 1-1. I know that these players have a lot of fans, so guys, make some noise in the chat. I want to see some Tox, some Cypher. Make some noise. This is a decider in this series, and we're starting things off on Cypher's point of view.
Now the question is, oh, Tox was already in position right there, sending Cypher into space with that one. But ironic, I actually kind of think that did Cypher a favor because it knocked him out of harm's way. If he didn't get launched that high and he didn't fall down the hole, Tox definitely would have finished that off. Wow.
LG, good start, but Toxic's got a massive stack advantage. That rail might change his mind. That one will for sure. Cypher landing the 2 for, oh, can't quite find the third one. That would have been the kill shot. Definitely seems to be at least a bit steadier on the railgun than he was in the previous map. Now keeping control of the center area, such an important part of the map because you can kind of keep tabs on both major items and have a pretty decent idea of where your opponent is at.
Tox being down on armor. Stopwatch. The thing about this situation is that we can never forget about the damage mitigation features of that bull rush. Because you'd think Tox is weak in a fight and you'd push. All it takes is that crush them, and then you're dead. and he just runs away and laughs at you. So you have to always respect that option. And Cypher playing a very careful information game right now, listening to those galactic warlord feats, those loud feats.
Oh, absolutely. There's a few champions that you can hear very well. They're anywhere near you. Cypher playing that information game, delaying the Mega right there. looking out for Toxic first. And of course, this is the decider. It all comes down to this one. So both players, perhaps a bit more passive, more cautious than they would usually be because of what's riding on this one. And cypher now has got a beautiful rotation of these items. Trying to catch a glimpse of Tox, but Tox playing a bit of a sneaky, evasive game himself, hanging out over at the teleporter down below, ready to just bull rush out if he gets pressured.
Looks like Tox is being equally as patient, though. And as the rail fight finally starts to break out, if Cypher does outstack you here, it is going to be a bit tricky, because you're always going into the understanding that if he has a rail angle on me and I'm Scale Bearer, he's probably going to hit the shot. Which is why, and right there, it's why the patience and the absolute cautiousness has to come out. Very little damage done, but Cypher's able to punish it all the same and finally take the lead. That was a hard-earned frag #1, but it looks like Cypher might be able to build some momentum from this. Tox does return some good damage, though. He hasn't got the weapons. Starting machine gun is not going to cut it, especially when he's like 5 or 6 seconds too early on Mega. Ouch.
That helps. The turret, the extra little bit of damage, at least forcing your opponent to split his attention between two good rockets raining down from below. Or above, rather, down towards below. As Toxic will fall once more. Cypher, beautiful rocket jump, reading his opponent perfectly. That was a masterclass right there, Ketchup. Beautiful play. Cypher, 54% railgun, 54% LG. Man's on point right now. Oh, look at that!
That is exactly what I was worried about. Seeing the bull rush, and it came out so early that Cypher had so much time to react with that with the turret right there. I'm not particularly confident for Tox in the rest of this map because of just the momentum Cypher's working with, how he's counterplaying the Scale Bearer. He's hitting every shot that he needs to. Case in point. And when the bull rush actually comes out, Cypher's kind of able to nullify it. So you're kind of left with a large target that's easy to hit and not really able to do what they're designed to do. More rails coming through. Tox, no way to stop. And I do fear that he might start pushing in the kind of typical Tox aggression when he's down.
This is looking dire for Tox. He has to stabilize soon. He cannot allow Cypher to continue applying this much pressure. He needs to start slowing things down a bit. Getting himself a few decent rails here and there, but his accuracy. Toxic is hitting 13% lightning gun for the time being. Has only managed to land 2 rails. He is getting out damaged tremendously. Cypher has 1,000 more damage on him. And also better item control. Toxic has 0 heavy armor pickups for the time being. He's just getting outclassed in every possible way right now.
And as we reach this potential closing moments, I don't want to talk too prematurely, but look how much damage the totem turret. I don't know how many, I've been commentating this game for like how many years since Ison came out, and I still keep saying totem and turret in the wrong order.
It happens. It happens.
Oh
boy. Cypher looking incredibly strong.
I'm just looking at how this is going so far. Tox, he's able to get a frag. Now, never say never, right? Because he did get a frag there. He has been able to get a nice stack as well. He's got enough weapons. Granted, he could probably use a few more rockets. But hang on. Full speed ahead. Cypher in a great position to nullify, but the rail's good for Tox. Can Tox keep this momentum rocking? He has to be very careful indeed, as Cypher's defensive angles are pretty damn good. And he drops the turret down to try and save his skin. So much turret damage is coming out.
I wish we had a turret damage counter for the time being. Now Toxic, though, it does seem to have found breath of fresh air. Earlier I was talking about how Cypher had 1,000 damage over Tox. This time it's been reduced to just around 500, maybe at 400, 300. Toxic dishing out a tremendous amount of damage real quick.
But there's an immediate shift from Cypher. You can see just the second someone starts to position themselves near heavy, like in between eyeball and heavy, you know what their objective is, right? They are trying to play the slow game, but the point blank bull rush has other plans. And Tox is slowly but surely bringing himself back into this match. Hits a rail. Cypher gets hit by a second Tox. Looking for the third to finish the job, and can he even do it? Tox having to read where he's escaping. There is a lot of potential to get away here, but Tox is using it as an opportunity to get control again. Oh no!
That's a good amount of damage from the Tribal as well. The turret is in such a bad position. Beautiful play from Cypher. Toxic. Can he afford to push through this? Cypher isn't even railable, so even if he lands that one shot, it won't be enough. Toxic, he shouldn't have stayed around that long. He was too greedy. Cypher had all lines of defense working his way. The turret, the Tribals.
Oh no! Watch your head, Cypher!
The flyby.
I'm not particularly sure Cypher was particularly ready for Tox to be right there at that point in time. He wasn't even close to looking that way. Not every day a scale bearer sneaks up on you like that.
Usually you can hear him from a mile away, but this time he was swooping in silently. Like an owl, just floating on by with a beautiful flyby rail. Now Toxic, 2 minutes, 2 frags. Extremely doable.
Very
and he
much
finds
so.
Cypher. Oh, he heard him. He knows that Cypher is down below. Or is a teleporter? Try to bait something out right there.
A little bit of damage.
Yeah, sneaky.
Here comes the bull rush. It does block it again, but it's not enough to stop him. Cypher gets the rocket though! Tox can't finish it. Now Tox, he still has time for this comeback. Oh, hits the corner right before, and Tox does not have the right weapons. He knows it. You can't push in there with the rail alone. You know that Cypher's got more than that. He'll punish you even on hit.
How did that go wrong for Toxic? Just couldn't quite pull through the damage that he needed with the bull rush. And then caught in a bad position. Cypher just bouncing around him with rockets and will find that final shot as well. This might be the end of it. Toxic pushing in. He's desperate. He's gotta do what he has to do, but it won't pay off.
A lot of these plays in the final section were all or nothing.
Oh
Toxic can't even finish it! 1 HP! That has got to be one of the most insane sequences of 1 HP in a fight. Oh! Here he comes.
And that tracking, catch-up. 54% LG accuracy still for Cypher. My goodness, Toxic. We saw so many signs of life. Excellent attempt at a comeback. But it didn't matter in the end. Cypher, he knows this is the end. Toxic won't get his first win just yet. Managed to secure at least a map for the time being, but it will be Cypher taking home the series. The Na'Vi player from Belarus finding his motions, his groove once again.
Cypher played exceptionally well today. This final map, and it is, I mentioned this earlier, not between these two players, but I talked about how I really... what is going on? I was talking about how players really, they're starting to play specific champion matchups so well, and even little things like Cypher on reaction dropping down the turret to block the bull rush and stuff like that. It's a really nice little extra element that, you know, it just shows a next level understanding of these top level players, and well played for Cypher. I think you'll feel good about that one because, you know, they both had a really highly competitive match. You know, damage alone, a lot more damage being dealt out there by Cypher as expected, you know, because he's up against a heavy, but that was a fun to watch final map. It's a shame for Tox that, you know, his final sequences to try and bring himself back into the match were very all or nothing, and all or nothing, it can... the snowball effect can happen if it doesn't work out for you, and that's kind of what happened for Tox. He pushed in, he wanted every single frag to be now, immediately. If I get this frag, make the comeback, I've got plenty of time, and that one time it didn't work out, the whole momentum was stunted, wasn't it?
And we're going to see it on the replay now. I do think that was a mistake from Toxic because he was 5 frags behind, 5.5 minutes in the game, and then he managed to claw back in a relatively short span of time. He absolutely could have done more still. Had a really good opportunity of just continuing that pace, but he jumped the gun. I think that's what it comes down to.
He takes him by surprise here with the rail.
Yeah, beautiful shot.
And then it was the next frag, wasn't it? It was this next encounter right here where Tox...
Now we skipped it.
Oh no, we skipped way far ahead. Anyway, never mind.
Okay, yeah, so...
I got confused in the same room. I wasn't looking at the score count. How about that?
Unfortunately, we don't get to see the deciding frag right there, but that really was it. Toxic just got a bit too greedy, a bit too hungry, rushing down the stairs into heavy room with the bull rush. Cypher putting down the turret. Toxic does manage to dodge it, but in doing so, he can't quite get the angle of approach that he was going for. Doesn't do that initial damage that he needs, and then meanwhile, Cypher uses those stone walls as a perfect block to get it around cover while still peppering Toxic with a good amount of damage, and that's where it all just went wrong.
Check it out, 14 heavies versus 3 heavies for Tox as well. Cypher absolutely controlling the armor front, or at least the heavy armor front at the very, very least. But overall, it's always a pleasure to watch those two players go head to head, and well done for Cypher. If it's anything, it's just a boost of confidence, and the fact that every stage counts this time round, how you play every single week. You're never truly safe, are you? So these kind of weeks where you can clutch out an overall victory might come back to really help you out as we close out the stage, but there's plenty more weeks to go before we finish off stage 1. So thanks for watching so far. Our next matchup should be, if I recall, Nosfer versus Chain, so we'll be seeing that one in a few minutes time. But as always, while we set up the next match and get these two players in the lobby and all that good stuff, we're going to go for a quick break, so don't go anywhere. Quake Pro League will be back after this.